Before bookkeeping, before I started the business in 17, I was actually CEO, CFO of a manufacturing company.
I love bookkeeping.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the I Love Bookkeeping Show. My name is Ben Robinson, and I am your host. And today we've got a lot of fun in store. Got a very special guest. But before we get to her, I would love to encourage you that if you have any needs, if you want to go back and listen to any of the prior episodes of I Love Bookkeeping, head on over to ilovebookkeeping.com because there you're going to find all the episodes. You'll find show notes. We've got an application on there, so that if you would like to be a guest, you can go ahead and put your application in. We would love to help you in any way that you can. So again, head on over to ilovebookkeeping.com. Now, we have with us, she says that she's not the most interesting woman in the world, lady in the world, but she is married to the most interesting man in the world. So we must have the spouse of the Dos Equis guy right here. She is mom to a beautiful 1-year-old. They live in the Seattle, Washington area. She says that, she started this business so that she could love her work, make every moment count, and be present with her family and friends. So I'd love to welcome to the I Love Bookkeeping Show, Shelby Pitzel.
Thank you so much, Ben. It's an honor to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on here. Okay, so tell me, how is your husband the most interesting man in the world? I gotta know.
I thought you might ask. So he seems to be in the right place at the right time all the time. So he's always helping people on the side of the road. He has actually saved people's lives.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And so he's also humorous. He should be a comedian, not a heavy equipment operator.
Oh, okay. All right. He's the heavy equipment operator.
He is.
Oh, wow. I love watching those shows where they have the big mega things. And you're like, there's no way that we built something that big. So totally. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you obviously have a virtual bookkeeping business. How long ago did you start it?
In 2017, so a little over 2 years ago.
Okay. So what made you start in this crazy world of bookkeeping?
So before bookkeeping, before I started the business in 17, I was actually CEO, CFO of a manufacturing company. I got pregnant in later 2017. So it's just after I actually started the bookkeeping business, which was my side hustle at the time. And I just realized, I really wanted to be able to have freedom and be home with my baby. And so took that role and moved on to creating my business and working up to where it is now.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes. So what's your favorite thing about having your own bookkeeping business?
Personally, I absolutely love the freedom. I love the fact that I can create my own schedule. I have flexibility. I can make my schedule around my family and my friends and my relationships. Before, when I was CEO, CFO of the other company, I didn't have my own schedule, and I worked a lot, and I didn't have a whole lot of white space, and so it was tough. But now I'm able to actually be there for people and hear myself for once.
Yes, absolutely.
Totally. And professionally, so there's kind of two sides of this. Professionally, I love the fact that I get to use my skills to teach people about how to read their financial statements and how to make decisions. And I love numbers, so it just all makes sense.
Yeah. Do you think that being a CFO of a company before helped you in this role?
I think so. I definitely learned actually a lot through your program.
Oh, that's good to know.
And then I learned a lot from you. So
yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Good. So you were CEO and CFO of that company?
Yeah. It was a small manufacturing firm. It wasn't it wasn't a huge team, but it was different than what I do now.
Well, still, that's two hats to wear, and those are big hats. Yeah. So good for you. Now, obviously, we get real here on the I Love Bookkeeping Show, and it's all not puppy dogs and rainbows and unicorns and all that stuff. So there are challenges. So what has been one of the biggest challenges transitioning from working in that role where you had a quote-unquote job to owning your own business? What's been a challenge?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is when I worked with the team face-to-face. So it's easier to build well, not easier. I'm learning with the way digital media is and having team members that are you're not necessarily in the same office. You're not communicating face to face necessarily, working in the same office. The struggle is creating a culture and creating a dynamic of a team digitally. And
Right. Gotcha.
in person. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's unpack that here in just a second. As you can probably see, my dog is jumping at the door in the background, and I'll probably have to let her in a minute. As we were talking about before we got on the show, why is it that a dog wants to sleep until you have to do something, right?
Of course.
Or
Sorry.
a kid. What's that?
My German Shepherd's in the other room, so hopefully it doesn't bark at anybody that comes to the door.
Well, my dog will probably just start barking back. So, okay. So let's get to that here in just a second. But how many clients do you serve right now?
I serve 7 right now.
Okay. And where do you want to take this business? It's important that we understand where we're going.
Absolutely. So 11 is my goal this year. In the next 3 years, it's 30.
Okay. Okay. And what is your main emphasis for saying, hey, I want to get to 11 this year and then 30 in 3 years? What is it? Is it money? Is it just about the business? What's your main motivation?
Really, it's being able to meet my personal goals with my family. We need a truck. So increasing our pay is good and needed, but also being able to serve the people that do need help. That's really also my main motivation as well.
Okay. All right. So family, finances, freedom. We always talk about all those things, and the flexibility, as you mentioned earlier, all important without having to sacrifice one for the other. That's really important. Okay. So good to know that you want to go there. In terms of team, so what do you have right now in place in terms other than you?
Of course. So currently I have one employee, and she's actually local. So she comes in to my personal office, my home office, once a week. We do some training and things like that. But eventually, obviously, with serving more clients, I'm going to need more help. So more than likely, it'll be remote team members that I'll be hiring soon. So I want to get a good foundation in place for that.
Okay. The person that you hired, did you know them before you hired them? Okay. All right. And I'll tell you, as we talked about before the show, I lived this. When I had my own CPA firm, everything was in-house. So kind of like when you were at the manufacturing, right? You were there, you saw everybody. And then when I started this business, we were all virtual. Matter of fact, we've been in existence right at 5 years, and we just now got a physical office, and I haven't even worked a day in it yet. It's new. So we live this, and we still will have a virtual team. That office will be dedicated more to a specific function. But I understand these challenges, and they are definitely challenges, and there are opportunities as well. There's pros and cons. So so you already knew this person that you hired individually, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's important that you're thinking about this now, because culture and creating that is intentional. It's not something that you just wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to do this. Ask me how I know, because I screwed that up 7 ways to Sunday. But it's important that you're thinking about now. So pat yourself on the back for that. Okay. So what I would ask, or what I would suggest, is that let me ask you this. Do you like the physical environment, having people? If you had your perfect world, would all of them be sitting in your neighborhood and you could just get together at the community clubhouse and work?
Oh, now you're making me think. I guess that would be something that I would enjoy, is having that synergy. I was thinking even too, once a year, if people did work remotely around the US, meeting once a year, that was kind of something I was thinking about, but that's only once a year.
Sure. Right. Yeah. Well, don't spoil any of the suggestions that I was going to give to you. We can just go ahead and end it right now. No. So if that's something that you like, how do you live in a populated area? Are there a lot of people, or is it sparsely populated?
I live in a town that's really small, but we're in an area, we're only an hour from Seattle. So with the other towns that are outside of us, they're fairly close.
Okay. All right. So one thing that I would suggest is that it's great that you are thinking virtually, because the benefit to that from a client perspective and a team perspective is that it opens up the world. It opens up, instead of having, let's say, a labor pool of 100, now you have a labor pool of 100,000, just metaphorically. Instead of having 10 clients in that town, there's now 100,000 clients, whatever the case may be. So it opens things up, but it also presents challenges. And so I would encourage you that as you start to develop this team out, one, hire slow, hire slow, hire slow. If you take nothing else away from this, because that is a challenge in and of itself, and growing from a one-person team to a two-person team now you're managing somebody, right? And so I just encourage people to really, and that we talk about this a lot, have our processes down before we start trying to get people.
Yes.
It's processes, then people, because people will not solve a workload issue or inefficiencies. They'll just add to the problem.
Absolutely.
Again, ask me how I know, because I thought that, right? I had all this work and I thought, I'll just hire these people and throw them at it and give them no direction and everything will work out. Everything did not work out. Everything was made worse. So I would tell you to get really hire slow.
That's great advice.
And when you hire, well, that's the only piece that if I've already given you a piece of great advice, then we are closing things down. Now, the other thing I would tell you is that we like to do the crawl, walk, run, sprint model with hiring people. And here's what I mean. Let's say that I have a process and it's down. It's not perfect. It never will be. But we're overwhelmed. We've got a lot of work, right? We're starting to not get behind, but it's time, right? It's time for us to start looking. One of the things I would also encourage you as a sidebar here is never, ever stop looking for great people. Even if you're not hiring, always be planting those seeds. If you talk to somebody at church, you talk to somebody in the line at the grocery store, you have a friend on Facebook and you find out that they do what you want to do, if they have the skill set that you're looking for, put them in your virtual Rolodex and tuck that away. Because as you start to grow a team, the worst time to try to hire somebody is when you desperately need to hire somebody. Because then your criteria and everything goes down because you're just trying to get the job done. So two things that we always say that you should never, ever stop doing. Number one is recruiting great team. And number two, recruiting great clients. Again, Don't have to hire, don't have to take on the client, but it's nice to have that pipeline always in play. But going back to the crawl, walk, run model, let's say that I have a specific task or a couple of tasks that I need to offboard. I need to offload those and I need to get some help. The thing that I would do is to find somebody on a place like Upwork. And Upwork is really good because it has the built-in network of, the rating system of people, and they have people on there that will do almost any service, any task that we need in our business. And so what I like to do is just to hire somebody for a couple hours a week, right? 4 hours a week. If they work out, and I always like to, when I do that, hire two contractors, because chances are one of them is not going to work out. It's going to be a bad culture fit. It's going to be a bad personality fit. They're just not going to have the skill set, whatever the case may be. And one of them usually does work out. So if I were to have 10 hours of work a week, I would hire two of them and give them 5 hours of work apiece. The great thing is that if one of them doesn't work out, you just terminate the contract on Upwork. And there's no harm, no foul. That's the purpose of the whole ecosystem. Cool. But the one that does work out, you start to give that individual more and more tasks, more responsibilities. You're still on the Upwork model. They're handling all the compliance, 1099s and all that. They're working for other people. But then you're probably paying a little bit more to be on Upwork. In the long run, you're paying a lot less because you're not committing to an employee yet. You're getting to, because one of the most expensive mistakes I ever made, or the most expensive mistake I made in my business, was hiring wrong. Training, putting them in positions that they shouldn't have been in, that I should have known better. Those are costly mistakes. So you may pay a couple of dollars an hour more, but it's definitely worth it in the long haul. And that gives you a great labor pool. And it also is kind of like it's kind of like a relationship, right? I mean, you date for a while, and that's what this is, right? Before you take it to the next level. And so that's kind of going totally not what you're talking about here, but just some observations about hiring.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely a good start to have before introducing the culture.
Yes, yes. Because as you start to introduce a culture, the one thing that does not work, they could have the best skill set in the world, but if they don't agree with what you believe, it's going to be very difficult. So one of the things that I would tell you, people say, well, we have to have this vision. And I think a vision is important. I think you should have one for your business. You already articulated it a little bit. Hey, I want to have 11 clients by the end of this year. I want to have 30 clients in 3 years. Great. I also would get real specific as to why you want that personally, as all that relates to economics, as it relates to, but I know that it's more than that, right? It's also about a sense of accomplishment, and it's probably about building something. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Because it's fun to see the fruits of your labor and like, hey, I want to earn more money. I'll go get 4 more clients from where you are today. Yeah, absolutely. If you hear thunder in the background, we're having a big storm here.
It's been raining for like 3 months straight here. So
yeah, well, it is almost Seattle, so it's been raining for 3 millennia here. So that's just one thing that I would encourage you is just to write those down, and then like write down the vision for your business. This does not have to be anything formal, like just written out on a sheet of paper, so that when people come and to interview or talk with you, you share this. Like, hey, you know what? I have a small bookkeeping business right now. I want to take it to this point, and here's why I want to do that. And that's one element at the front of these relationships with a client and with a team member. It's important that they know who you are, where you're going, and what kind of business you are, and what kind of person that you are.
That's a really good point. I have actually, you recommended Vivid Vision, and I read that. And I did that.
Yep.
My vision is like 5 pages long.
Okay.
So I think what it sounds like is I need to simplify that in a way that I can communicate that clearly with my potential team members.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. For you, it's totally fine. But for a potential person, you want to be able to hit the highlights. Okay. And what I would tell you is to write down just like what you believe. Set aside some time just to write. And it doesn't have to be just about work, right? But obviously you believe that culture is an important thing, and there's a reason why. So I would tell you before you go out there and really start, articulating your vision is to say, here's what I believe. Here's what I believe about work. Here's what I believe about personal life. Here's what I believe. Obviously, the reason that you started this business is that you believe that you can have a life of freedom. You can have your family. You can be there for your child. You can be there for your spouse and still earn a living. And so not everybody agrees with that. Not everybody believes that, but you need to make sure that that comes across to anybody that you're going to have a relationship with, a client or team.
Good point.
Because all of the vision and alignment and all this stuff is for naught if we're not dealing with like-kind people. Not robots and clones of us, but people who have that core belief system that we do.
Sure. That makes sense.
That to me is like the foundation. Like we could try to say, hey, here's other stuff that we could do. But that's the most important element. And again, I had people that if you were a warm body and said that you could do the job that I needed, I was like, go do it. And that didn't work very long in my firm. It made me miserable. So at one point enough was enough.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
Now, so the one thing I would encourage you is that it seems like you like the more physical environment. So I would encourage you to, when you start looking for people, you should start, again, as I mentioned, now, always be looking. There's probably more there than you think. And if that's what you prefer, then you probably can hire local, and that way you could get together on a monthly basis. And, you could go to a WeWork, or you could come to your house, or you could go and, have lunch and take the team to lunch. I think, as an aside, I think meals as a family and as a team are the very best bonding moments. I remember, having my 3 kids, and we always, not always, but a lot of the times would have an icebreaker question at a meal. And those are the times that they remember most and I remember most is when we would have that time. And I also think with a team, because sharing a meal is just a very, I don't use the word intimate, but it's a very close knit type of thing that we're doing. And so I think that it's cool if you were able to do that, because you were having people that were there local, or people who were, in maybe the Seattle area within an hour. So that, yeah, it's a pain in the rear to go do that every single day or every week, but once a month or once every other month, it's not that big of a deal.
That is awesome. Cool.
If you do, though, hire people that are extended, you already kind of hit the nail on the head. Getting together physically is we always say that, because we do that twice a year with our team virtually. And we always say that, hey, we get so much done in these 3 or 4 days. Wow, we should work together. But guess what? If we work together, it wouldn't be like that. It's definitely a trade-off, right? It's definitely a challenge. And those are a couple of ways to overcome it. But getting together physically with some frequency, once every other month, once a quarter, for us twice a year, because we are all over. But the closer that your team is, the easier it is for you to meet physically.
Okay, good point.
And that dynamic is unlike any other. But keeping it such that you work virtual. If you do start to bring people in, obviously that's going to get expensive. And I tell people, look, well, if you don't have an office, it kind of replaces the expense that you would have for a physical office. So trade-offs there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But it really stems from where you want to take the business. It really stems from what you believe, because otherwise, and you're already ahead of the game, right? So I'm kind of speaking to everybody else here. It's like, hey, where do I want to go with this? I don't want to just hire people nonchalantly. I don't want to just bring on this many clients for no reason. I really need to get intentional about why in all of this. And that right there will cover up a multitude of errors that we can make along the way. Aligning ourselves with people who believe what we believe, who share the vision that we have. They don't have to get all rah-rah about it as you do. Nobody else will, by the way, as a business owner. You're the most rah-rah person about your business, and should be, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So those are all mistakes that Ben has made along the way that I have learned from. And we can all use them to make our lives and our team better.
I appreciate that so much.
Oh, you're welcome. So what is your, let me ask this as an aside. So what is your main focus right now in your business? What's the one thing that you're focusing on?
Right now is picking a niche.
Okay. All right. So you have 7 clients. Do you have any 2 that are alike?
3, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not in the same industry, but their personalities are very, very much alike. And so I've been able to kind of pinpoint the commonalities between them.
Yeah.
So it might not end up being an industry specifically. Right. It might be more personality and where I find them, I guess.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. There's definitely that side of things. And also, obviously, there's some benefits to having the industry. But just like we were talking about, aligning ourselves with people who we can latch onto and that are not, again, clones of us, but like us, it motivates us to want to serve them. So run with it. I love that model. That's great.
Cool.
So picking that niche, defining that's your big thing right now. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I love marketing, and I shouldn't say I haven't been able to. I just haven't had the motivation to, because I haven't had that one focus to be able to market to a specific market.
Right. Yeah.
So once I pinpoint it, then I can actually market and do the stuff that I really enjoy.
Okay. That's another thing that I would write down. What are those things that you really enjoy? Because as you start to put together a team, as you know, in the task audits and all those things we talk about, this is going to kind of force you to think, well, what's the type of role that I'm looking for, right? Not the type of person in this section, but what's the skill set that I'm looking for?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And another thing, and I've suggested this many a times on I Love Bookkeeping, but if you guys are a lot like me, I have to hear things like 84 times before it ever kicks in. But
or hear it from somebody else.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's, I can tell my kids something, and then a friend will tell them, and they're like, "Oh yeah," and I'm like, "We talked about that," and But creating a job scorecard and not just a job description, and you can Google that. There's templates out there, but it's really a way to quantify results. It's a way for us to keep score. If we were going to play a game, every game has some sort of way to keep score. Not that business is a game in that way, but there is a method to keep score so that you and all your team know how performance is going. And this is something that I struggle with sometimes, especially when we're dealing with less quantifiable type of positions where it's more about the relationship, but there are ways to do that. And so, but I'd tell you that all that stuff is like secondary, big time to having people that share your vision.
Right.
And, I think that as let's say you develop a team and then in 3 years you have 4 or 5 people working for you and they're scattered throughout. What we're doing right here is great, right? Or it's good. Being on a phone, it's okay. Email, very cold. Being there physically together is the best way to do things. So it's a mixture of all of that. But the thing that I'll leave you with is that there is no such thing as overcommunication. Now, there's too many meetings and all that stuff, but and I am the worst in my team. If they're listening to this right now, they're snickering in the background because I'm not very good at that, and I'm learning to communicate better and not just have an idea and run with it. And then they're like, "What happened?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you." But communicating. What's that?
Happens to me all the time too.
Yeah, that means you're an entrepreneur, right? We like to act and then kind of look back and go, "Oh yeah,
oops, yeah,
yeah," which is an asset as well as a liability.
Right.
So, well, good. Well, I hope that this has helped, Shelby.
Yes, it absolutely has. I appreciate it so much.
Well, you're welcome. I would love to do a follow-up with you in a year or so after you've done some of this. And obviously, I'll see you next month in Atlanta. But I'd love to do a follow-up. We're going to start doing some of those stories and saying, hey, how did things go? And what did you learn? Because, all this is advice, by the way. It's not, hey, Ben said to do it exactly this way. You start kind of with a piece of advice from somebody you trust, and then you alter it to your own way, and you'll find ways that I would never have thought of. And that's one of the things I love most about having a business is that it's kind of like being Lewis and Clark and charting our own territory.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yep. Got to love a little bit of chaos. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Shelby, it's been a pleasure having you, and I appreciate your time here today. And best of luck to you this year, and I hope you continue to crush it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. I can't wait to talk to you again next year.
Listen, if you would like to hear more great conversations just like today's, then I want you to head on over to ilovebookkeeping.com. There, you're going to find all of the shows, the notes, and some other great goodies that we have for you there. Now, if you'd like to be a guest on the I Love Bookkeeping show, there is a link that says Be a Guest. Go in there, and we'll walk you through the process of getting on the show. And finally, to discover more about our programs, go to the courses page on the ilovebookkeeping.com site. There you have it, another great episode of I Love Bookkeeping. Thank you for being a proud listener, and thank you for being a bookkeeping professional. Enjoy the rest of your week.
I love bookkeeping. Here's a little shout to all my friends working hard at keeping the books. You want to change your life, you want to grow that biz, it's not as hard as it looks.